Hi everyone, William here with the Grand Duke Dmitri 1915 diary series. We've got beautiful Indian summer weather here in Portland on 2nd of September 2025. Coming up on Dmitri's birthday, but it's divided. So in Russia, on the old calendar, it was on the 6th of September, which of course is very near on our calendar, but because of the divide between the Julian and the Gregorian calendar, the actual date in the West, I believe now, is the 20th or 21st of September. So in that sense, we have a ways to go. I always have a little celebration with friends for what it's worth. Sometimes I forget, but usually not. Okay. Our recap for yesterday, and there's my poor old dog with his cough. Well, we had the recuperation from the nose cauterization, and I'm happy to say that we're done with medical procedures for a while, if I remember correctly. And then we had the first appearance of a very important person, a friend of Dmitri's, and also his adjutant, Shagubatov. I don't know how long Shagubatov had been with him. Maybe, maybe since the time he got the rank of cornet. He was a captain in 1915. Anyway, of course, Shagubatov is now in our cast, and we have a woman named Florence Prince, another Horse Guards officer named Baga Afbu, Swedish, Russified Swedish. Funny name, it always makes me laugh. Baga Afbu. It's that last part. Sergei Dolgoruki, whom Dmitri liked. They weren't close friends, but we'll talk about that later. The actress Deikarkhovna, and a woman named Olya Mark. Okay, we're up to the 17th of February / 2nd March. It's Petrograd, Nevsky 41, -4 degrees, so it's a cold one, but clear, but also with a strong wind, so not a pleasant day to be outside, and that is our weather report. Here we go. I slept well. My tooth doesn't bother me as much these days and doesn't wake me up in the middle of the night. I woke up around 10 o'clock and had coffee in bed. Shagubatov came to me around 11 o'clock. We had lunch together at the Astoria. There were quite a few people. I talked with Florence Prince. Afterwards, I went to the club and played billiards. There were lots of people. I played well. Around 5 o'clock, Shagubatov dropped by, and we went together to have tea at the Astoria. There weren't many people I knew there. Then I went home. I read Invisible Light. Around 8 o'clock, Shagubatov came by, and we had dinner at the Astoria with the elder Baga. It was very late. It was very nice. Afterwards, I went to the club and played billiards quite successfully. Then Shagubatov came by, and he and I and Sergei Dolgoruki went to Kantan. Deikarkhovna and Olga Mark were there. The time passed very pleasantly. Fortunately, we didn't stay there very long, and I went home to bed after scarcely more than an hour. Okay, so this is a day that has a definite rhythm to it of sort of repetition, and it's pretty typical of Dmitri. I really tried to find Florence Prince. I would guess she was either from an aristocratic or a gentry, noble British family, or, on the other hand, she might have been a performer. So I don't know whether I put in, it didn't matter. If I put in Florence Prince, I would always be directed to this woman named Florence Price, who was a well-known African-American composer and musician from that time period, so a rarity to have a female and African-American person able to break through the barriers. And I was a little excited at first because I thought, cool, what an interesting person for Dmitri to run into and talk to at the Astoria. But alas, Florence Prince or Price, the composer, was not hanging around at the Astoria in wartime Petrograd in 1915. She was strictly in the U.S. So I have to concede that one. It was not the same woman, and I don't know who this Florence Prince was. Yeah, I mean, we have really the two centering agents in Dmitri's life right now, as of the day before, are the yacht club, which was already the case, and Shagubatov. So they are the touch points, no matter what else he's doing during the day. And, you know, the yacht club, I think, is a very relaxing place. You're not thinking about women. You're just there doing some gambling, and it seems like it's pretty low stakes gambling with the billiards. So, yeah, that's a nice, relaxing place. And then when he's venturing out, he was going out mainly without companions. Now he's got Shagubatov. So that is nice. He returns home and reads The Invisible Light, this book that we are familiar with, the occult book, the second in a trilogy. Then, you know, his social life, as I think was the case, as I mentioned before, with most Guards officers, was with other officers from his regiment. And so the Baga, when he says the elder Baga, he means I believe he means the older man with the same name as another Baga, Afbu. This is Baron German Karlovich. So German in Russia would be Hermann in German, of course. He was 5 years older than Dmitri, and he was indeed an officer in the Horse Guards. It seems like the Horse Guards officers and the other Guards officers are pretty well represented in the city right now. And so I tend to think that after the disastrous invasion of Prussia, of East Prussia, that the Guards Corps were getting some downtime, although that had been almost a year before. But anyway, it appears that it's not just random officers, but that maybe the regiment itself is on some kind of leave situation. So that makes it a little less shocking that Dmitri is kicking around Petrograd, more or less doing nothing, just enjoying himself. So he and Shagubatov and this officer have a very nice dinner. So again, one of the repeating patterns in today's diary entry is threesomes. I mean, not obviously in a lurid sense, but, you know, going out in a group of three and going to familiar places. And Dmitri doesn't particularly like it when the crowd are unfamiliar to him. But anyway, next he meets up with, are they joined by? Yeah, so we have, here's where we have the threesome, right? Well, no, so Baga falls off, and they're joined by Sergei Dolgoruki, who was famously, I believe, the boyfriend of Grand Duchess Ksenia, whose husband Sandro was a notorious philanderer. I don't know if that relationship had already begun. Dolgoruki had been, or perhaps still was, attached to the service of the Dowager Empress, so in frequent contact with Ksenia. And he was sort of a casual friend to Dmitri, not a person well, he would confide on a rare occasion in Denmark in 1921. Perhaps you recall that Dmitri actually would confide his concerns about, do I not go as far as he very much wanted to marry? Do I go the dynastic route? So on and so forth. But, you know, Sergei Dolgoruki is, you know, an older man, not old, and, you know, well-established, and someone who's been around the family for years. And so, yeah, that's kind of the basis of their relationship. Now, Canton is actually spelled with an N-T, a C-O-N-T-A-N-T, but in the Russians transliterate the French word into Cyrillic they do it phonetically, so dropping the final T. And it was another one of these very, very chic clubs at that time, like Yar and Medved and what's the other one? Aquarium. Not a club in the sense that the yacht club was, but kind of a restaurant / nightclub, I think. The kind of place that Dmitri was drawn to, and other guards officers. So they went there, the three of them. And then they meet two women. So the three, I don't know if the women joined them. It sounds like they did, but it became 5 people instead of 3. If there was another woman, we could keep to our pattern of 3s. But we have a woman that Dmitri had seen very recently in Moscow, Deikarkhovna, not a Russian name, a Russified name. She was an actress, a very well-known actress. And yeah, he'd been hobnobbing with her in Moscow, and without having gone back and looked at those diaries, I can't remember if there was any kind of spark between them, or if she was one of the women that Dmitri called boring. But anyway, here she is. Olya Mark, Olya being the diminutive form of Olga, she's there as well. And I had a complete failure with her. But I assume, as far as finding her, but I assume since the two ladies were together, that they were both performers. And, it's interesting that they're out together. It's 1915. Women are, they have a certain degree of independence. We're coming up on the jazz age and the real age of, the fight for women's suffrage and that sort of thing. So, I don't know. I guess these were places where it was not disrespectable to go for women, especially if you were with a friend, and it just didn't necessarily mean you were looking for a pickup. And certainly it didn't end up being a pickup, because Dmitri says he's barely there for an hour, and he's actually glad. After all these really late nights on the town, he's really glad to be getting home at a decent hour. So, and, he repeats again the same thing he said when he had dinner with Shagubatov and Baga. We had a nice time. So he's saying the same thing here at the Astoria with his friends and the two women. We had a nice time, nothing wild. Okay, what will we have next time? He'll be going off to Tsarskaya for dinner at Papa's, and he will not have a good time. But we'll get into that. And then afterwards, he's going to cut his losses and go back to Petrograd and end up in a private room at the Astoria with 2 ladies. So we're kind of back on track with his typical behavior. All right, so this isn't the most fascinating stuff, but believe me that we're edging in that direction, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.